Hey everyone, and welcome back to English in Real Life. I'm Sophia.
And I'm Ryan. Today, we're talking about something that honestly keeps me up at night. Job interview English.
Oh, but not just any interview English. We're diving into why the exact same perfect answer can totally impress a British interviewer and completely bomb with an American one.
Right.
It's all about professional culture, and honestly, it's mind-blowing how different these two approaches are. So, Ryan, let's jump straight in with a role play. You be the candidate, I'll be the interviewer.
Okay, I'm ready.
So, Ryan, tell me about your greatest weakness.
Well, I'd have to say I'm probably too much of a perfectionist. Sometimes I spend way too long on projects because I want everything to be absolutely perfect, you know? But I'm working on finding that balance between quality and efficiency.
Stop right there. So, if I'm a British interviewer, I'm already thinking, oh, please, not the perfectionist thing again. That answer screams, I'm trying to make a weakness sound like a strength.
Exactly. British professional culture values authenticity and genuine self-reflection. They want to see that you're actually self-aware.
Honestly, I sometimes struggle with delegation. I have this tendency to take on too much myself because I worry about letting the team down.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working on it though. I've started using project management tools and having weekly check-ins with my team to build that trust.
That's much better. You sound genuine. You've identified a real issue that actually affects your work and you're actively addressing it.
But here's where it gets really interesting. That same honest answer might not land well in an American interview.
Oh, absolutely. American professional culture is much more about selling yourself and projecting confidence. So the American version would flip it completely. I used to struggle with delegation, but I've realized it's actually an incredible opportunity to develop my team's skills and multiply our impact.
Yes.
Now I see delegation as strategic leadership. I'm empowering others while focusing on high-level strategy. It's actually become one of my key strengths.
See the difference? Same basic weakness, but you've completely transformed it into a positive leadership story. Very American.
I learned this the hard way, actually. When I first started interviewing for jobs in London, I came across as way too aggressive and self-promotional.
Oh no, what happened?
Well, they asked about a successful project I'd led, and I launched into this very American response. I personally increased our department's efficiency by 40% through my innovative process redesign. I identified the bottlenecks, developed solutions, and drove implementation across 3 teams.
Ooh, that's very American.
Right. The interviewer looked uncomfortable and said, "That's quite impressive," in that polite British way that actually means you sound incredibly arrogant.
Oh, that's painful. I had the complete opposite problem when I moved to New York. I was way too modest, and they genuinely thought I hadn't actually accomplished anything meaningful.
What did you say?
When they asked about the same project, I said something like, well, the team really did most of the work. I just helped coordinate things and tried to support everyone. We were quite fortunate that it worked out well.
Classic British understatement.
Exactly. The interviewer looked genuinely confused and said, but what did you actually contribute to this project? I hadn't sold my role at all.
That's such a perfect example of how these cultural differences can completely derail an interview. So, what style do you think is harder for English learners to master?
Ooh, that's a great question. I actually think the American style is much harder to learn.
Really? Why's that?
Because it requires this very specific confidence language that doesn't translate directly from other languages. You need to know power verbs like spearheaded, drove results, transformed, instead of just saying, I worked on it or I helped with it.
That's true, but I think the British style is actually trickier in a different way. You have to find this incredibly delicate balance between modesty and competence.
Explain that.
It's about subtle confidence. Too modest and you seem weak or inexperienced. Too confident and you seem arrogant or not a team player. British understatement is genuinely an art form that takes years to master.
You might be right. It's like walking a tightrope. Okay, so let's give our listeners some really practical vocabulary they can use. For American interviews, you absolutely need those power verbs: achieved, exceeded, transformed, pioneered, generated, optimized.
Yes, and confidence phrases like, I drove results, my approach led to, I successfully delivered, I took ownership of. Very direct and action-focused.
Right, for British interviews, it's much more collaborative language. We managed to achieve. I was fortunate to contribute to. The team and I developed. I had the opportunity to work on.
And British softening phrases like, I'd like to think I played a role in, I believe my contribution helped, I was pleased to be involved in, or I hope I was able to add value.
Much softer, but still professional. But here's the key. Research is everything. Look at the company's website, their values, their communication style. Are they formal or casual? Hierarchical or collaborative?
Exactly. And remember, these are generalizations. Not every British company follows the same patterns, and American companies can vary hugely depending on industry and region.
Absolutely. A tech startup in Silicon Valley will be completely different from a law firm in Boston, just like a creative agency in London will be different from a bank in Edinburgh.
But understanding these cultural tendencies gives you that crucial starting point to adapt from.
And one more quick tip: practice both styles. Even if you're only interviewing in one country, you might end up with an interviewer from the other culture.
Great point. Multinational companies especially can have such mixed interview panels.
All right, that's all for today's episode. Thanks so much for listening to English in Real Life.
Before you go, here's your challenge. Write your answer to that greatest weakness question in the comments below. Try both British and American styles if you're feeling ambitious.
We'd love to see what you come up with, and join us next week when we'll be exploring British versus American small talk. Why "how are you" gets completely different responses, depending on which side of the Atlantic you're on. See you then!